The presidential and National Assembly polls saw women got 15 of the 423 legislative seats declared so far by INEC, while the women got 15 seats, which represents 3.5%. The men got a total of 408 seats, which represents 96.5% of the 423 seats. As Nigeria and the rest of the world mark Women's Day, it raises questions about the decline in women's participation in politics in Nigeria.
Well, to discuss more on the International Women's Day, we are now being joined by Cindy McWhorter. She is the Innovation Manager of the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, UNICEF, Nigeria. Thank you so much, Cindy, for being on the news tonight.
Thank you for having me.
And happy International Women's Day to you.
Thank you, and to you as well.
Thank you very much. Now, this observance or celebration comes amid national and local elections in Nigeria. I think that's a good place to start. Like our introduction said, there's a decline. I mean, women, 15 seats so far in the National Assembly, those seats declared so far. Why do you think that Nigeria, which is Africa's most populous nation, fails terribly when it comes to women participation in politics?
I definitely think the data are an important milestone for looking at the opportunity to change the script for women. So when we look at the population of Nigeria, it's an incredibly young population, one of the youngest in the world. So girls under the age of 30 actually comprise 30% of the entire population. So this is an extraordinary opportunity for growth and development for Nigeria. But in order to have more representation for women, there are multiple barriers that can be addressed. So if we look at the data further, girls and women lag behind men in internet access, adoption, and use. Many lack modern employability skills. And when we look at financial exclusion or unbanked women, they're much more in a worse situation than their male counterparts. So I think this is an opportunity to invest so that we can see more women. And today the theme is digital, so digital transformation to leave no one behind. And being in Nigeria, a leader in fintech and innovation and technology, there is a lot of investment happening, but deliberate actions are needed for women and girls. So specifically things like ensuring women and girls have their full legal identity. So not just we need a birth certificate for their basic human right, but also an NIN to have a phone number, an email address, to vote, to travel, to be a full participant in society. The other things that women and girls need, we need quality education and digital and financial literacy skills. In addition, digital access and data. So if we look across the country, there are many parts of the country with no internet broadband connectivity. So it's a huge opportunity to extend the internet infrastructure to those communities. And for those where it's still 2G or really not a strong signal, it's important to upgrade for meaningful connectivity. But women and girls, they need smartphones, they need devices, they need data plans so that they can go online and access these quality learning opportunities, earning opportunities, and have social and financial services. And I think that's the fourth key part. Women need bank accounts. So now thinking of
bank accounts with money in them.
Exactly.
In fact, I was just coming to that what would they need more, particularly with the Nigerian situation, where the issue of empowerment, women's empowerment, is at its lowest. That's why they say a lot of them can't compete or contest for political offices. Digitization or empowerment. As an expert in this area, as an interventionist agency of the United Nations, how can this, which would you prioritize?
I think it is sustained investment in both. And so there are amazing leaders in Nigeria. So hearing their voices, so that Nigerian young women see those leaders and have the mindset that that will be me. And then with this investment, including women having bank accounts with money in them, then they will be contributing to their communities. They will be leading, and it will be not just benefiting them, it will benefit their families, and it will help Nigeria grow and develop.
How can the Nigerian woman make, I mean, you talked about the theme for this year's observance. How can the Nigerian woman really make this a reality? Does she have a role to play? And talking about roles and those involved, what exactly is UNICEF doing to help the Nigerian woman leverage on technology and all of these things, to play her part, or to even be at the table we talk about?
Yes. So UNICEF is part of a public-private youth partnership called Generation Unlimited, and that's where government, private sector, and young people, including young women, are all at the table working together to co-create solutions to address this digital and financial divide. So it's about extending connectivity. Last year, 400 communities got extended connectivity, and young people got access to free data and kiosk where they could go and get online. They were also linked to the private sector learning opportunities. So many companies have very high quality ranges of skilling programs to upskill young people so that they can be qualified for more high paying jobs, including women, and then also a focus on empowerment. So giving young women a seat at the table so that they can, I think we need to hear their voices. What are their priorities? What do they need to see happen to change the narrative?
And in changing the narrative, what's your target? Is it from adolescents to 30 or 30 to 60?
Well, we want to see this change for all women. At UNICEF, for this public-private youth partnership, we're really focusing on girls 10 to 24. So again, looking at what a huge portion of the population that is. So it's really an opportunity to have that dramatic change, but really we care for every child. So, and men as well. So that's the other point, right? It has to be men in this conversation too, as we say, he for she.
Great, they have to be part of the conversation. I was just going to ask you about the level of growth, because we've seen the likes of the United Nations, UNICEF, intervene in ensuring that women have voices, women and girls' rights are protected. But despite that, we see that even women participation in politics, globally is rising, however slow. But, in countries like Nigeria, it is almost static, if not declining. But how would you rate it? I mean, you're UNICEF and you work in this field. How would you describe the growth so far, despite all of this intervention we're seeing? Would you say you're happy with the level of growth? Is there even growth when it comes to women having a voice, having a seat at the table, girls' rights, and all of that?
I think that the data speaks. And so now we have a wake-up call to see what do we need to do differently. So you look at upper secondary school, and that's where you see the difference between completion from girls and boys. Why is that happening? So I think we need to look at the causes of the causes and come together to see what are those barriers and to invest, to have the political will to change the narrative for girls.
All right, what are your plans for, training the trainers to be able to spread this new doctrine of digitization, into the hinterlands where communications is usually, a huge problem, a massive challenge?
So two things. So one, using human-centered design and using young Nigerian women to be the trainers. Again, because we need young people to have the seat at the table. So for example, in November, we had some co-creation workshops in Katsina and Sokoto states where young women that are lawyers, doctors, teachers, women in tech, they came in and they were trained in human-centered design, and then they took their little sisters through this process of working to hear from them what are their priorities for change. So one, we think that's really important to work for and with young girls and to give them the spot at the table.
Catching them young.
Yes, I just wanted to chip in again, in the time past in Nigeria, I don't know if Adesu witnessed that, we used to have educational television,
Yes.
devoted And UNICEF is not rejigging that again?
Well, we still are. So this is where the technology comes in. So for children to be learning in schools, if they're at home, they should be learning on the radios, or now there's the Nigeria Learning Passport with the Federal Ministry of Education. It has over 15,000 curriculum with multiple Nigerian languages. So absolutely, technology to be learning in school, at home, and also informal training as well, right? So it's also important to learn a trade, and even being able to have access to the internet to increase your market. So if I'm a tailor and I set up a website, I can grow my business.
Absolutely,
Indeed.
absolutely.
Indeed.
Well, no better place to drop the anchor there. Cindy McWhorter, thanks so very much of UNICEF for joining us on the International Women's Day. And once again, happy International Women's Day.
Thank you.
Thank you.